Folks, welcome to another Design Patterns. I'm Mark Brown and Jasmine. How you doing?
Hi, great. How are you?
I'm doing great. So in this one, we're going to talk about this thing called document versioning. This is another really common pattern for actually not just customers using Cosmos, but for lots of different workloads and scenarios. Like if you're building, say, an event-driven application, or you're doing something called CQRS, which is an acronym that I'm not going to spell out for you, but it's basically building a pattern for building event-driven applications where you're building kind of commands into things, and then you have like materialized views, and then you read from those. But it's a pattern where you want to maintain every mutation, every change for an application that happens. And kind of the scenario we're going to talk about here is a one that most people understand, kind of like an order processing scenario. So this is the sample we've got here, and I'm going to walk you through kind of the scenario. So we have like this little shopping cart thing. You create some orders in here, and then you either go through and you fulfill them, or you deliver them, or you cancel them. And what we'll show here is kind of how we implement that and how that works. And so it's very simple, right? So you create some new orders that inserts a bunch of new orders into Cosmos. And then we're going to use this thing called change feed, which everybody that uses Cosmos uses. And if you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it. And if you use Cosmos, start using it because it's pretty handy. You can do lots of cool stuff like this right here. So we'll have a container of orders, and then we'll have another container where we're going to have all the history of that in there. So let me get to it. I got my little web app here, and I'm going to create a bunch of orders here. So I'm going to type in like 7 here. And let's go ahead and submit some orders here. And here you can see it submitted a bunch of orders. Now, let me go, and I'm going to go over to my container here, and let me refresh this thing. So if I go and I click refresh, this is going to show a bunch of orders in here. So here you can see products in here in my orders. That's fine, right? Let's go back. Now we're going to do some stuff to this thing. So we'll go ahead and let's take this one, and we're going to click fulfill. And here you can see that moves down here. Maybe fulfill this guy right here. Maybe cancel this one here. I will fulfill a couple more here. So, all right, so we've now got some stuff. Let's go ahead and we'll deliver a couple of them here. So there you go. So now we've got a bunch of orders that are all in this different state. We have some submitted, so they haven't changed. They're right there. We have fulfilled. 2 of them have been fulfilled, 2 delivered, and we've got 1 that's canceled. So let me show you on the application here. Let's go ahead and refresh here. Now, this is going to be exactly the same. And the reason is this is going to have the current state for what's going on. So if I look in here, and I know this is really small because our browser is really tiny. There it goes. You can see the status is delivered. And if I click on others, that one's still submitted and delivered and fulfilled and fulfilled. So this represents kind of the current state of everything in here. Now, if I go and click on historical items, let me refresh that. And you can see there is a ton of stuff in here. And you can see that some of them have the same ID. So this one, you can see this order was delivered, but it was also fulfilled before then. And then it was fulfilled there too. Am I looking at the right ones? And then submitted in here as well. So you're going to get every mutation, every change that happened to those orders within the history within there. So how do we do it? Well, simple. We use that change feed. So I'll go into my app here that we've got our sample built for. And it's got a couple of different services. It's just a little simple website we've got. We have an order helper that goes and does things like generates orders. And then we have the handling versioning in here. And we did that using this little archive service that we implemented as a little background service. So this is a .NET background service. And this implements our change feed. So we have a little function here, start change feed processor, and that defines our change feed right within here. So we have a container we're going to monitor, and then we have the builder. We give it an instance name, and we give it a container for our leases. And then you start it, And then that's it. And then that thing fires up. It's basically registered itself as a delegate. And then every time a new change happens, this function gets called right here, handle changes async. And then it just goes through and it says, hey, you got another change in here. I'm going to give you a new ID. And then I'm going to take that whole order, that whole item, and I'm just going to create a copy of it and shove it into my history container. And that's it. It's really simple. And that's kind of how you do kind of document versioning within here. We used it for this cart sample here, but we hope that that gives people kind of the the whole gist of how this whole thing works. Hey, Jasmine. So what do you think?
That is a great design pattern. And what you showed is like really really simple and easy to implement. And if you want to try it, definitely check out the repository at aka.ms Azure Cosmos DB design patterns. Thank you so much for joining.
See ya.